to the Waffle Flower channel. This is Nicole and it's in the details. Today's card features a scene framed up by a circle, and this is a scallop circle from the Flower Circles inverted dies. All of these great images are from the Happy Day stamp set. I'm going to start by stamping the images that I'm going to be using for my scene from Happy Day on some Neenah Solar White cardstock using an ink for Copic coloring, so just a nice solid black ink. I like to use the Misty so that I can make sure and get some great solid impressions. I'm going to fill up this whole little piece of paper with these stamped images, and then I will start coloring them in. I will stamp these one on top of another. Like I said, I want to make sure that the outline is very nice and dark black. One thing I love about creating a scene card this way is part of the scene is going to be inside the circle. Framing up is always a great way to immediately draw your eye into the scene you're creating. What's fun about this is part of the scene is going to be inside that circle and part will be on the outside framing it up. I am coloring in my images. I had to take just a small break there to fill my E40 marker. It was way dry. And then just starting to add some color. I did speed up the coloring quite a bit. There is a lot of coloring in here with just the different images. The colors of the Copic markers I'm using are shown across the bottom of the screen. I went with some muted colors. Still definitely, a lot of florals and outdoorsy type of images here. So definitely those kind of colors. And then my favorite color, brown color combination for coloring in animals or critters. For my bear on the bicycle, but I went with some little bit deeper colors this time. Oftentimes I will stick with rainbow colors or very bright colors, and I think it's fun to experiment outside of your comfort zone just a little bit every once in a while. So while I stuck with my favorite color combination here, everything else is going to be a little bit richer, I guess I want to say. I went with a little bit more of an olive undertone for my greenery. This is some of my favorite green markers, the yellow greens in 91, 93, 97, and 99. Different combinations of those 4 markers for all the greenery. I'm going to try to color in all of that at once. Even though this is a single card, kind of assembly line style. So I have my green markers. I'll go ahead and color all of that. Then I'll move on to my flowers, the wagon, the bicycle, the basket, and then the butterfly. A little bit deeper pinks, kind of a purpley type of undertone. These are some red violets in 91, 93, 95, and even a little 99 for the very center of the flowers to darken and deepen those up more. Some yellow reds for the yellow, YR 31 and 23. The basket, my camera must have died midway through, was E55 and E57. Go ahead and finish coloring in some of these flowers. Decided to add more greenery to this particular flower. And then some blue colors for my butterfly, but even though these are in the quote-unquote blue color family, I think they're very purpley with that purple undertone. I love this color combination. Be 60, 63, 66, and 69 with some warm grays for the butterfly body. And then some little bit deeper reds instead of the lighter reds that I tend to gravitate towards for my wagon and some of the flowers as well. I will add some of that to the bicycle, just to give it a touch of color. There really isn't a lot to color on the bicycle, but that'll add just a tiny touch of color. A lot of it is inside the frame and not really visible anyway. I will take one of the Flower Circles inverted dies now, and I'm going to die cut this from a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock. I'm using Bristol because I want to do some ink blending with distress markers, distress inks. And I have found that they blend so much nicer on this Bristol Smooth cardstock as opposed to a traditional Neenah Solar White cardstock. I want to keep not only the frame there, that rectangular frame, it has that stitched, or not stitched, dotted detail around the outside edge from the die, but the scallop frame as well. And I'm going to show you my favorite tip for creating a dimensional frame here in a little bit using both of these pieces. I will go ahead and ink up a whole separate panel underneath for the background and my scene building. Now, what happened was I stamped my greeting from the Happy Day stamp set with Versamark ink, heat embossed that with white embossing powder, and then started to apply my distress inks for that embossed resist look. But I picked wrong. I picked the wrong distress inks to start coloring my frame. Now, you could totally just re-die cut this, re-stamp it, add the embossing powder, heat set it, and start again with a new color. But that's quite a few steps. And if possible, I always try to salvage my project when this happens. Doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. Sometimes what you think in your mind is going to work doesn't translate on to the project. So what I had originally planned was to use the crushed olive and the Victorian Velvet distress inks to color this in, trying to pull from the colors of Copic markers I used for coloring in the images from Happy Day. And it's too yellowy. You can kind of see that here. I could see right away I didn't like it, but I thought, well, maybe as I blend these together, it's going to work better. It's not. It is not working. So I need to cover that up. And I thought something with a little more red will blend nicer into the pink. I like tone on tone a little bit more anyway. So I went with the aged mahogany and Victorian Velvet for my frames. It's still going to have a tiny bit of that green undertone, but it's not going to be as bad. After I blended in the Victorian Velvet, I even went back and added more color with the aged mahogany, darkening it up as much as I could to get rid of that yellowish undertone. It just didn't work at all. So once I have that, I'm going to spritz this all with water from a distress sprayer and then blot it dry with a paper towel. Make sure buff off that greeting so it's very easy and legible. Then my background, I can use that great crushed olive, and I'll blend in some forest moss because I think those two look great together, and it's going to be a nice blend, a nice combination for my background. Again, spritz that with water from a distress sprayer, blot it dry, buff that real good, and there's what it's going to look like. Now I put foam adhesive all over the back of my panels together. That scallop frame and my background frame, that's going to hold them together. And then I am going to attach that to my background piece before I start to adhere all of these images. So it's a great way to attach the scallop frame to the rectangular frame without additional adhesive. Instead of trying to fit the adhesive to the scallop circle, which can kind of be tricky, I like to just lay them flat, put the foam adhesive on the back, and it holds them together. I put the bear on the bicycle inside the frame, and then I'm going to frame up the outside with the cute little wagon, a little grouping of flowers. I needed to add a little touch of foam adhesive behind one of those blooms so that it stuck well since the frame is all popped up. My little butterfly floating there outside. Group together my greenery over here along the right side. Add some little dots so that I can go into the inside of the card and finish a stamped greeting here in a little bit. Adding some white detail with a white glaze pin to the butterfly, some stardust glitter pin to the center of some of the flowers, a black glaze pin for the nose, the insides of the wheels. Then go back to the white pin and add some highlights, a few more dotted detail to some of the images. Going to dress them all up, more highlights here and there. That looks good. Some little dots for the cheeks. Also, some of these leaves down here I missed earlier, so I want to grab those real quick. Stardust, or pardon me, the Wink of Stella clear glitter pen over some of the flowers. That's going to give them just a tiny bit of glitz and glimmer. The butterfly wings as well. Glossy accents for the butterfly body. The center of the flowers, just little tiny drops. It's going to give them a nice glossy finish, a little bit of dimension, and the inside of the butterfly. Now on my card base, I am going to go ahead and take the rest of the greeting from Happy Day and stamp that with black ink on the inside. I stamped it off on scrap paper several times. I could have used the Misty too to make sure I got a really good stamped image, but that worked as well. So it'll read, today is a good day to be happy. And I think that's a fantastic fun greeting. This is great for all kinds of different occasions. And it finishes off the inside of the card. I'll go ahead and put a little adhesive on the front of my card now. Take my panel to my card base. And I did get a little bit of ink there, but it is a handmade card, so sometimes I just go with it. Go ahead and attach that right to the front, and there is my finished card. Thanks for joining me today for this framed up circle scene card. For more product information, please visit waffleflower.com. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.